It's 6 p.m. in London. This is The World Today with Maryam Moshiri. Former US Secretary of State Hillary Clinton has been testifying before a congressional committee investigating the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. She says she had no idea about his criminal activities. This is the scene live in New York State where Mrs. Clinton is testifying. She says President Trump should be called to give evidence. More talks have been taking place between the US and Iranian officials in Geneva. Iran is under pressure to make concessions or face the prospect of war.
Those talks are back underway. We are going late into the night here in Geneva. This afternoon, Steve Witkoff took the opportunity to meet the Ukrainian team here in Geneva. Two high-stakes negotiations running simultaneously.
Instagram says it will start alerting parents if their teenager repeatedly searches for terms related to suicide or self-harm. Also coming up on The World Today, saving the seals. We'll bring you the story of the heroes keeping seals alive after the harsh British winter. Hello and welcome to The World Today on BBC News. We start in the US, where former presidential candidate and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton has been testifying to a congressional committee that's investigating the paedophile Jeffrey Epstein. Her husband, former President Bill Clinton, will also be testifying and is due to appear tomorrow. Well, these are the live pictures from Chappaqua Performing Arts Center in New York, where the deposition is taking place. Hillary Clinton says she does not recall ever encountering Mr. Epstein and never flew on his plane or visited his island, home or offices. Hillary Clinton also has urged lawmakers to ask President Donald Trump about Epstein under oath. Well, the couple were initially reluctant to give evidence, but changed their minds after Republicans threatened to hold them in contempt of Congress. The Clintons are not accused of any wrongdoing. Well, let's have a listen to what Republicans and Democrats have been saying today. Republican chair of the US Congressional Oversight Committee, James Comer, insisted it wasn't a witch hunt against the Clintons.
This isn't just about Democrats. This is about anyone that has any knowledge of Epstein, the investigation. I think we all agree the government failed. The government failed the victims. And what our role is, we can't prosecute anyone. But what we have been doing is getting transparency to the American people. We subpoenaed the estate. That had nothing to do with the discharge petition. We subpoenaed the documents for the estate. That's what the victims asked us to do. And what you're seeing is there is accountability finally happening. You've seen at least a dozen very powerful people, men and women, who have already resigned, many in disgrace from their board positions. So we're seeing accountability, but we have a desire to see a lot more accountability. We want to get the answers, and hopefully the next 2 days will be a step in the right direction on our investigation.
Well, the Democrats' ranking House member of the committee, Robert Garcia, has also called on President Trump to testify, and he said he was looking forward to Hillary Clinton's testimony.
Oversight Democrats, from day one, we have said that we want to talk to anyone, any person with information about Jeffrey Epstein, about his crimes, about how he was able to get so much wealth. We will talk to any single person, whether that is a Democrat, a Republican, how much wealth they have, how powerful their position is. We want to talk to anyone. So we're happy to be here, and we're glad that both Secretary Clinton and former President Clinton are willing to talk to this committee. I also think it's important to note, I'm glad to see that we have our Republican colleagues here. As a big group of them. I wish they would have joined us at the Les Wexner deposition, but I'm glad that they're here now to get questions answered. That is an important part of our investigation. Let me just add that as it relates to Secretary Clinton, who's here today, she has been very clear. She's never met Jeffrey Epstein. We have no evidence of her having any interactions with Mr. Epstein. And so I think that's important to note as we walk into this deposition.
Well, let's speak now to Sidney Blumenthal, a former senior advisor to President Bill Clinton and long-time Democratic political strategist. Sidney, thanks so much for joining us on The World Today. What's really going on here? Why has there been so much pressure on the Clintons to make this move, to make these depositions?
What's really going on here is a cover-up in real time on the part of the Trump administration and the Republican Congress. That is why the Clintons, who have almost nothing to offer, have been called. The fact that Hillary was called reveals the partisan intent. But be careful what you ask for, because they got Hillary Clinton at the start, which was a complete backfire for them. She called the game at the start with her opening statement that it was a distraction and a cover-up. Here's who's not being called. Attorney General Pam Bondi, who is acting illegally and not revealing the 3 million files that she is suppressing, including those that are the subject of news reports in the U.S. of an alleged incident involving Donald Trump and sexual abuse of an underage minor. Trump himself, Melania Trump, who the files have shown had a close relationship with Ghislaine Maxwell, and Howard Lutnick, the Secretary of Commerce, who's been exposed as lying about his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, with whom he was a business partner. So there's an extensive cover-up going on here.
Well, I mean, appearing in the Epstein files does not mean that a person is guilty of any sort of crime. Important to underline that fact at this juncture. But can we just talk a little bit about the contempt threats on the Clintons and why you think that they have been pushed to this point? But also, I guess, more importantly, you talk about Hillary Clinton and what she said today, but Bill Clinton has been seen in various photographs from the Epstein files. What do we expect from him tomorrow?
Well, you'll hear from him tomorrow, and what you'll learn is basically what you already know, which is that he used the plane of Jeffrey Epstein for philanthropic purposes. Not the only person whose plane he used for essentially raising funds and distributing medical supplies, largely in Africa. The Clinton Foundation is responsible for cutting AIDS by about a quarter in Africa through its efforts. And you'll learn that Epstein lent him the plane, that Epstein was on the plane, and that Clinton had a peripheral relationship with him that didn't go beyond that. That's basically what you're going to learn. There's no evidence of wrongdoing or improper conduct of the former president in any of the documents or offered by any witness.
OK, Sydney, good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Thank you.
Well, let's speak now to our North America editor, Sarah Smith. And Sarah, just talk us through what we've been hearing so far in that building behind you.
Well, the only thing that we know that has happened so far since Hillary Clinton started giving evidence is that the hearing has now been paused because a photograph of her giving her testimony was shared on social media. It appears to have been shared by one of the Republican representatives on the committee, Lauren Boebert. That's very much against the House of Representatives rules, so the hearing has been paused and gone off the record while that is sorted out, although we expect it to pick up again soon. Now, it is all happening behind closed doors at the moment, so we don't know what's being said, but we do expect that a transcript of the whole hearing will be shared several hours after it's finished, once a chance lawyers for both Hillary Clinton and for the committee have had a chance to look through it. And on previous occasions, when they've done things like this, video of the hearing has been shared as well several hours after it has finished. It may be not until tomorrow that we'll see video of Hillary Clinton giving evidence, by which time, of course, her husband, Bill Clinton, will be in front of the committee himself.
And, you know, what more do we know about Hillary Clinton's stance? I mean, she has said, hasn't she, very emphatically that she has no information about any of Jeffrey Epstein's crimes. In fact, she says she never even met Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah, that's right. And she gave an opening statement, which was shared with the media, 4 pages of it before she began giving evidence today, in which, as you say, says she has no recollection of ever meeting Jeffrey Epstein, that she has no relevant information about any of his crimes or investigations into them, and says that she believes that if the committee is really serious about getting to the bottom of what happened, it should be asking President Trump questions about his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, given that he is mentioned very frequently in the Epstein Epstein files, and that there are other people the committee ought to be taking evidence from rather than her and her husband. Bill Clinton himself as well says that he has no knowledge of any of Jeffrey Epstein's criminal activities and that he deeply regrets his personal association with him.
OK, Sarah, good to talk to you. Thank you very much. Our North America editor, Sarah Smith there. Well, more on that story. There's a live page actually running on the BBC's website if you want to take a step away from the TV and read a little bit more about what's happening in New York State. But now let's take you to Geneva, because pivotal nuclear talks between the US and Iran have resumed there. Oman, which is acting as mediator, says creative ideas were exchanged during a session earlier today. Well, let's go live to Geneva and speak to my colleague Christian Fraser, who is there. And Christian, resumed. What more do we know about any progress that has been made today so far?
Yeah, they got back underway about an hour and a half ago, Maryam, and it looks like we're going to be going late into the night here, which is okay, because I think for everybody who's been covering this story, that is a suggestion that things have been broadly positive today. They were together for 2.5 hours this morning, then they broke for lunch. In fact, Steve Witkoff, the US Special Envoy, then headed off to meet a Ukrainian team that is here for negotiations on the Ukrainian deal. Very separate but running simultaneously, and then he came back here just after 5 o'clock tonight to resume with the Iranians. In the interim, they've been talking to their side, of course, in Tehran. So let's find out what Kasranaji, our special correspondent from Persia TV, makes of it. I know you're talking to your colleagues in Tehran and people here. There's an enormous amount of secrecy around the talks. It's designed that way to avoid the hardliners getting in the way. But do you think they're making progress?
It looks as if there has been some progress, but probably not enough to break the deadlock. I understand that the talks here are concentrated on the nuclear issue, and on the nuclear front there are two issues. One, the level of enrichment, the actual program and infrastructure for nuclear enrichment in Iran, and the second is that some 2,000 kilograms of highly enriched uranium, 440 kilograms of that at 60%, which is pretty high.
Close to weapons grade.
Close to weapons grade. So these are the two issues being discussed. On the first issue, I get the impression that they're probably looking for some kind of a symbolic enrichment within Iran, if it can be guaranteed that it cannot be diverted to a weapons program. And that's why the Director General of the IAEA, Rafael Grossi, is here, and he is, I presume, helping with that to see whether it is possible to have a level of enrichment, very sort of minimal, which Iran can claim that it has maintained its
and in terms of the enriched uranium, there's some suggestion that the Americans now want that. They would take it out of the country.
Yes, I would have thought that that was on the table a few weeks ago, a couple of weeks ago, even last week. But I get the impression that today it's become an issue again. Earlier there were suggestions that Iran was happy to dilute a part of that, so that it's not a sort of a threat, a weapons threat. And then there was suggestion that Iran was willing to send these to Moscow, to Russia, and the Russians said they were happy to accept them. But today I get the impression that that's not the issue, and the Americans are insisting that this material is given to the US rather than sent to Russia or diluted.
What might surprise some of our viewers watching is that, in fact, the two sides aren't sitting opposite one another. Here we are at the Last Chance Saloon, a huge military build-up in the region, and they're not even talking to one another. Across the table, it's the ambassador from Oman who is shuttling papers between the rooms. And one of the analysts that I spoke to earlier here at the barrier was saying that they're getting conflicting reports from Tehran. There are hawkish elements in Tehran that aren't as positive about what is going on in here. I guess that's the problem with these negotiations, there are hardliners on all sides that would like to see it fail.
And particularly in Iran. But I get the impression in the last week or so, this latest positions of Iran that have been given to the American side has been agreed by the general establishment, including Iran's supreme leader, who, according to Iran's president, had actually guided this and approved this latest positions. So the divisions are put aside for the moment to get this thing across and pass the line if they can. But these are really critical talks. This is the last hours. This is the last-ditch effort to prevent a war. A war is a very real possibility, and people in Iran particularly are very, very concerned that tomorrow they might end up under the rubble. So everyone is watching this, and not only in Iran, in the region, because Iran has threatened to take this if American intervention happens. They will take it to the region, and so the people in the region, in the countries around Iran, in the Middle East and Israel, are watching this very carefully with a lot of concern.
Media representatives from the Arab world, from the Israeli world, they're all here. I've been to some of these talks before, but there's certainly an enormous amount of interest in this, because it does feel, Maryam, as if we are at the final hours here, and of course everyone holding their breath to see whether the two sides can bridge what at the outset looked like considerable gaps.
OK, Christian, thank you very much indeed. My colleague Christian Fraser there in Geneva. Let's take a short break now, because still to come on The World Today, an interim report has found maternity services in England are failing too many families with problems at every stage. And we follow the story of seal pups rescued after huge storms that hit the UK. Around the world and across the UK, this is The World Today on BBC News. Tech giants have come under increasing pressure over recent months to do more to protect children using social media. And now one of them, Meta, says it's taking an important step in doing that. Parents will be alerted if their child searches for terms relating to suicide or self-harm on Instagram. Meta is currently in the midst of a landmark case in court, facing accusations from grieving parents that its platforms cause addiction. Child safety campaigners have described the new tool as flimsy and have warned it could do more harm than good. Here's Tom Simons.
If it can happen to our family, then it could happen to anybody.
This weekend, 30 cinemas will show Molly versus the Machines, a documentary about Molly Russell, 14 when she took her own life after looking at suicide content on social media platforms. Instagram was one of them, and around 40% of teenagers have an account. Now Instagram's becoming the first social media platform to introduce suicide alerts. The system starts in the UK in 2 weeks' time. The notifications will be sent on Instagram, but also via email and messaging apps. Parents will be told that it looks like their child searched for content related to suicide or self-harm repeatedly over a short period of time. They can then click through to a page offering advice about what to do next. But Instagram will only know who a child's parents are if they've added them via their teen accounts. Those were introduced in 2024. And one concern about this is that children over 15 can opt out of teen accounts. without telling their parents. But Molly Russell's father, Ian, now an online safety campaigner, thinks this whole approach is wrong.
Instead of taking responsibility for the harms that they provide to young people, Meta are passing the buck and putting it on the shoulders of parents yet again. They could sort this. Bigger picture, they could stop their algorithms suggesting harmful content to keep young people online. That would be safe. That would keep parents happy. That's what they need to do.
Instagram says it blocks content encouraging suicide or self-harm. Its critics say not well enough. And there was a range of responses at this sixth form college in London.
I think it's a really good idea because protecting the children should be the #1 priority of all companies.
But also at the same time, it could also be really invasive for the child who might not want their parents to know about this, or their parents might be causing them to access this material or to, have certain ideations of like suicide or self-harm.
But politicians are talking about a ban on children using social media, so the platforms are under pressure. Tom Simons, BBC News.
We'll have more on this with my guest from Mumsnet at 6:30. Now, we are 3.5 months away from the beginning of the 2026 World Cup. Football World Cup, of course, hosted across Canada, Mexico and the United States. Well, excitement is already building as the FIFA Men's World Cup 2026 trophy tour is set to arrive in Mexico City. But the celebrations come amid heightened security across the country, with thousands of soldiers deployed after a surge of violence triggered by the killing of one of Mexico's most powerful drug lords. President Claudia Sheinbaum told reporters on Tuesday that she believes there are no risks for visitors attending the World Cup. The BBC's Quentin Somerville has been reporting from Mexican cartel stronghold in the Sinaloa state. There, he met members of a cartel faction to try and understand what it might take to bring the escalating violence to an end.
These men are vicious criminals fighting other gang members for an illegal drugs business worth billions. They've gone to war after the son of one of their leaders betrayed another. This power struggle is a fight to the death, and they show little remorse. They insisted we disguise their voices.
The civil war in the cartel has created a bloodbath in Culiacan. Women are being killed, kids are being killed. Do you feel guilty about that?
Yes, a lot of times innocent people die, children die. There is a lot of death of innocent people.
A lot of people will keep dying because the cartel is still fighting, and it's going to keep getting worse. This war will continue. Nothing will come down until there is only one faction left.
Well, let's cross live and speak to Will Grant, our Central America correspondent who is in Mexico City. And Will, just talk us through exactly how difficult the situation has been in Mexico in terms of what we've seen in the last few days.
Well, this was really meant to be a bit of a celebration, wasn't it, ahead of the World Cup beginning in about 100 days' time. And instead, President Claudia Sheinbaum has been put on that back foot of trying to reassure football fans from around the world that they will be safe when they come to Mexico, that the World Cup will be held in an environment of security, that it will be a celebration, and that they don't have to continually worry about what happened earlier this week. But obviously, the events of earlier this week have influenced how people feel, particularly in some of the host cities. I was in Guadalajara, which is the state capital of Jalisco, and I spoke to people there who quite openly say they don't want the World Cup in their city. They're not looking forward to it, and they think that the people in the state have far, far bigger priorities to worry about. Is that I mean, the case? Is that why they don't want it there? Because they feel there's more important things to sort out? Is there no kind of excitement amongst anyone about it coming to Mexico? No, there will be excitement, and of course there have been people who will be looking forward to taking their photo with the trophy as it makes its way around the country. It's going to be stopping in 10 cities. It will make an appearance at the Mayan ruins of Chichen Itza, and the authorities think as many as 200,000 people will take their picture next to it, which is, so, you know, there is going to be excitement over the coming months. But certainly this week it's been tempered, and it's a reminder from the cartels that they really do control swathes of the country and that they can wreak havoc at a moment's notice. Claudia Sheinbaum says that won't happen again at the World Cup and that she's guaranteeing people's safety. But you'd be forgiven if you were a football fan buying a ticket for Guadalajara and looking at the events of this week and thinking twice.
OK, Will, thank you very much. Will Grant. Now, for seal pups born on Britain's beaches, winter can be the toughest start in life. This year, massive storms have made it even harder. Well, BBC News Round's Otis Holmes has been following one pup's story.
Meet Elvis. Back in September, when she was just 6 days old, this seal was rescued after becoming separated from her mum. And she wasn't alone.
Rescue charities up and down the UK say that they've been helping loads more seals than usual this winter. Many of those will have been cold, hungry and on their own, and they need people to step in and help.
This winter, the UK has already been hit by a few big storms. Most recently, Storm Chandra, which brought crashing waves and flooding to the southeast of England. Storms and rough seas can wash seal pups away from their mums. And that's when rescue teams get a call and spring into action. After getting help, Elvis joined other rescue seals at West Hatch Wildlife Centre in Taunton. And once at the rescue centre, seals like Elvis are well looked after.
These guys get meals 3 times a day, so they get 1.2 kilos at each feed, somewhere around 20 herring each per feed.
Do tell me if I'm overfeeding them, or is there no chance of that?
There's no chance of overfeeding, no. It can vary on which coast as to the main causes for seals coming in care. For us, a lot of them are poor individuals who've either been swept off away from their mum and that kind of stuff in really bad weather, or are just experiencing the sea and struggling because of the storms.
When seals reach the target weight, it's time for the next step on their journey.
So once they're about 25 kilos plus, we'll move them onto a deep pool like this one here. Then it's just a matter of, are they still putting on weight, making sure that they've got a nice healthy amount of fat stored. They're behaviourally interacting with other seals really well. They're doing a lot of good swimming behaviours. They're foraging for food, and then we know that they're ready to go.
So this is it. After weeks of special care, this is the big day.
Elvis and her 5 friends are being released back into the wild.
So it is a bit emotional, but it's why we do it. These guys get rescued in really dreadful states off of the beach, and this is our chance to put them back out nice and healthy, ready for a full life out in the wild.
Otis Holmes, BBC News.
A sinkhole suddenly opened at a busy intersection in Omaha, Nebraska, partially swallowing 2 vehicles. Take a look at this CCTV footage released by the Omaha Police Department, capturing the shocking moment. The cars plunged into the collapsing ground within pretty much seconds. There you go. Authorities have closed the road as a precaution in case the sinkhole expands. Fortunately, though, no one was injured as bystanders and nearby drivers quickly gathered at the scene, appearing to offer assistance to those affected. You're watching The World Today with me, Maryam Moshiri. We're back after this short break. Stay with us on BBC News.
Hello. We'll take a look at the satellite picture across Asia, and I think one thing you might notice really is there's not much in the way of cloud across the Philippines. Reason for that is the subtropical ridges extending in here, leaving any showers across the south of the country. Many parts of the Philippines, though, will be dry, very warm and sunny over the next few days. Further north, we've got some rain affecting parts of Japan into Taiwan, turning wetter. And we've got some rain across the southeastern mainland China as well. Often the weather will be cloudy for these areas. Turning cooler in Shanghai, temperatures just 13 through Friday afternoon. Heavy showers and thunderstorms widespread across southern areas of Vietnam. Probably see some of those in Cambodia. And I think over the next few days, we'll probably see showers turn increasingly torrential across central and eastern areas of Indonesia, with a threat of some localised flooding building in here. Talking about flooding risk, in Australia we have widespread heavy showers and thunderstorms. The biggest storms will be across central areas with several hundred millimetres of rain expected over the next few days, so some flooding is very likely, could bring some transport disruption too. We have had reports of some storms causing some localised disruption in Sydney during Thursday evening's rush hour. Could be a few more storms over the next few days as well, affecting eastern areas of Australia. Storm or two then for Brisbane. Auckland could see a shower Sunday, drier through Monday.
Without bringing new people into the game and inspiring the younger generations, the game won't continue.
We take in about 150,000 tonnes of waste per annum. There's a bit of out of sight, out of mind.
He'll join a 6 to 12 week program of rehabilitation designed to get people off drugs and into work.
Documentaries from around the world on BBC News. With Russian strikes increasing in number and severity, along with rising tensions between Russia and NATO countries, we're seeing no sign of a halt in the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. See the headlines as they happen, with breaking news alerts on the BBC app, and stay informed with live updates on bbc.com/news. Follow the story with BBC News.
I'm on a Turkish adventure, combining my love of food with history. And in the country's southeast, the dishes echo the old spice routes and the stories reach back to the dawn of civilization. Join me, Julie Lynn, for World's Ultimate Adventures on BBC News.
The fearsome display of cartel violence this week has shaken Mexicans who are trying to get back to normal. But what does the killing of El Mencho mean for Mexico? Join me, Will Grant, on BBC News.
Today's business leaders face unprecedented pressure to introduce change and quickly. On this week's Talking Business, we speak to experts about how to introduce new technology and hear from two major CEOs about how they turned companies around. Join me, Mark Lobel, for Talking Business on BBC News.
This is The World Today on BBC News, and these are the headlines this hour. Hillary Clinton testifies before a congressional committee investigating the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. She says she had no idea about his criminal activities. The US and Iran have resumed crucial talks in Geneva aimed at preventing a war over Tehran's nuclear ambitions. Video footage shows Israeli soldiers shooting a Palestinian boy and standing around as he bled to death. We hear from his family in the occupied West Bank. Instagram says it will start alerting parents if their teenager repeatedly searches for terms related to suicide or self-harm. Let's return to one of our top stories now. Parents enrolled in Instagram's teen accounts experience in the UK, US, Australia and Canada will be notified if their teenagers search for self-harm or suicide content multiple times in a short period. Parents and teens will be notified about the alerts from next week. The rest of the world will follow later. Meta, which owns the platform, says it wants to do more to protect young people from harmful content, but suicide prevention charities like the Molly Rose Foundation have criticised the measures, warning they could do more harm than good. Meanwhile, the online forum Mumsnet is calling for a ban on social media for under 16s, featuring health warnings in the style of those on cigarette packets. They've launched an advertising campaign to highlight the dangers of phone addiction among young people. Well, let's speak now to Justine Roberts, who's the founder of Mumsnet. Justine, it's good to talk to you. Thanks for joining us on The World Today. Talk me through this provocative advertising campaign. What was the idea behind it?
Well, we know that 92% of parents on Mumsnet are concerned about the effect of social media on their children's mental health and well-being. So this is something our users want. 83% are in favour of a ban. The government are about to launch a consultation on this, so there's a slight concern they're just kicking the issue slightly into the long grass. We want the government to know how much support there is out there for a ban, how much families are struggling in their day-to-day lives with compulsive use of phones, lost sleep, rising anxiety and collapsing self-esteem of kids. So we want people to write to their MP really and let them know. So hence the kind of high impact campaign that really shows people that this product that is put into our kids' hands is really as dangerous as smoking is.
So talk me through the risks that you believe come with use of social media by teenagers, by under 16s.
Well, I think all the things I've said around sleep and esteem and rising anxiety have been borne out in surveys we've done of parents. But more to the point, there are many other studies out there that show teen phone addiction doubles the risk of anxiety, triples the risk of depression. If you spend more than 3 hours on social media a day as a teen, you're more likely to self-harm. And it's also linked with a higher risk of suicidal behaviour. So these are not trivial matters, and we think that, you know, hence the health warnings on these things. I think if it was any other good that did this to kids, we would have banned it long ago.
Let's talk a little bit about Instagram and what we've just been reporting on The World Today about these notifications of searches for self-harm, for suicide content, parents getting notified if their teens do this. How much responsibility do you think social media companies have towards children and young people? And are you in favour of this move, or do you think that it doesn't go far enough?
Oh, I'm afraid I think it's yet more fiddling around the edges by Meta and their like to try and make their products seem safe and suitable for kids. But essentially they are dodging the responsibility of the damage they are doing. There is a landmark trial happening right now in the States where Meta are on trial for causing social media addiction. And the documents that have come out of that show that there are thousands of emails, internal emails from Meta, showing they know addiction is a problem and literally saying safety isn't their highest priority as a business. So I think this is window dressing. I don't think it's going to make a huge difference. And the problem is the content being there in the first place and kids being addicted to these apps which show this content.
OK, Justine Roberts, founder of Mumsnet. It's been so good to get you on the show, so thank you. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Now, footage has emerged from the occupied West Bank showing members of the Israeli military shooting a 14-year-old Palestinian boy and then standing around for at least 45 minutes while he bled to death. The Israeli military has accused the boy of throwing a rock. His parents say footage of the incident last November shows soldiers planting something next to him after he was shot. Well, the BBC's Joel Gunter sent this report from the West Bank, and a warning: you may find some of these images distressing.
The boy lying on the ground is 14-year-old Jad Jadallah. He has been shot by Israeli soldiers. He will lie here for at least 45 minutes, surrounded by the soldiers, as he bleeds to death. Jad was born and raised in Al Farah refugee camp in the occupied West Bank. His father, Jihad, took us to the place where he was shot. He's showing us the bullet holes where Jad was shot, and CCTV video shows Jad and his friends in this spot when Israeli soldiers appeared just a few meters away on this corner. First, you see Jad's friend run up the alley. Then you see a soldier who appears to raise his rifle and shoot from close range. Jad appears to be hit before running a few meters and collapsing. The Israeli military has accused Jad of throwing a rock, which can, under their rules of engagement, permit them to respond with lethal force. But this sequence shows an Israeli soldier dropping something next to Jad after he was shot. The object seems to be heavy. The soldier steps back before stepping forward again and appearing to take a picture. Jad's mother, Safa, says this footage shows the soldier planting a rock to frame her son.
They dropped a stone by his hand so they could frame him. and make it look like he was throwing stones at them. Anyone who watches the video will see it.
The Israeli military told the BBC they gave Jad initial medical treatment, but they refused to give any more detail. In the video, the soldiers appear to ignore repeated attempts by Jad to get their attention. Local paramedics arrived on the scene within minutes, but were blocked at gunpoint by Israeli soldiers. One of them told us they could have saved Jad's life.
We tried to advance several times, tried signaling them to let us reach the child, but we were completely blocked.
According to the UN, Israeli forces have killed 227 Palestinian children in the West Bank since the October 7th attacks. In some cases, including Jad's, they have refused to return the body. The families say it is deliberate cruelty.
I want my son. I want to bury him. They have the right to bury their children. I want the right to bury my son. They already killed him, but they won't give him back to us, and we don't know why.
We asked the Israeli military why they haven't returned Jad's body, but they declined to answer. Joel Gunter, BBC News in the occupied West Bank.
We're just getting some news from Geneva, where, of course, those talks are taking place between the US and Iran. In the last few minutes, the Omani foreign minister, of course, Oman's been acting as a go-between between the two sides, has said that talks between the two sides have finished the day after significant progress in the negotiation between the US and Iran. It then goes on to say will resume soon after consultation in the respective capitals. Discussions on a technical level will take place next week in Vienna. I'm grateful to all concerned for their efforts, the negotiators, the IAEA and our hosts, the Swiss government. Remember, these are the third round of indirect talks between the two sides. They're seen as crucial in averting conflict, with President Donald Trump threatening to strike Iran if a nuclear deal isn't reached. Of course, at the moment, we are seeing a huge military build-up in the Middle East by the US, the biggest since the US-Iraq invasion in 2003. And so to avert anything significant in terms of military action, these talks have been taking place. They've been going on today, and we're hearing now from the Omani foreign minister that those talks have finished after significant progress. We will, of course, bring you all the very latest with our chief international correspondent, Lise Doucette. She is in Geneva, and she'll be talking to us at the top of the hour in about 20 minutes' time, so stay with us for that. A BBC Eye investigation has revealed that Nepal's top police officer gave the order allowing the use of live fire during last year's Gen Z protests. 19 people were shot dead on September the 8th. Subina Shrestha has more.
September the 8th, 2025, one of the deadliest days of protests in Nepal's history. By nightfall, 19 people will have been shot dead in Kathmandu, including 17-year-old Shriyam Chaulagai. The schoolboy joined tens of thousands of young people to protest against government corruption. Angry at social inequality, they galvanized themselves on social media.
Our generation was exasperated by the behavior of leaders who have been here forever. Social media trends started. Leaders and their families were being exposed.
But how did what started out as a peaceful protest end in bloodshed? According to internal police documents seen by the BBC, permission to use live ammunition was given on police radio at 12:40.
Curfew already in place. No further need to obtain permission. Deploy necessary force.
It came from call sign Peter 1, who we can reveal was Chandrakuber Kapung, Nepal's Inspector General of Police. He has denied responsibility. Nepal police told the BBC that the order had already been cleared by a government security committee. The BBC forensically examined more than 4,000 videos and photos taken on that day to piece together what happened next. Shriyam was captured here during the protest.
I told him not to go. Things can happen at these protests. He said, I'll be in my uniform. As we are minors, nobody will do anything to us.
Less than 2 hours after the order to use live ammunition was given, at least 4 people are shot dead, and Maryam is again spotted in the crowd. Ahead of him, a group of protesters pelt the police with stones. Maryam, unarmed, turns away from the violence. These are his last steps. Over the next 48 hours, chaos reigns. Parliament is set alight, at least 50 more people are killed, and the Prime Minister resigns. An official inquiry into the violence is yet to report its findings. As the country waits to go to the polls on the 5th of March to elect a new leader, no one has been held accountable for these deaths.
In my mind, he is in his school uniform. He'll return swinging his bag. I wish he would return. I've not been able to accept that he's no longer here.
BBC News, Subina Shrestha.
Well, you can watch the full BBC documentary, Shot Like Enemies, inside Nepal's Gen Z uprising on BBC World Service YouTube or on iPlayer if you are in the UK. Let's take a quick break now. Around the world and across the UK, this is The World Today on BBC News.
Gentlemen, what do you think? Well, this is awkward. Right, how do you want me to stand?
To the first position.
This is the first position. It's the last position.
Nope.
No. I'm gonna fall over. Breathe.
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 Breathe. Look the horizon.
To the horizon.
Now run.
Run?
Like that.
Like this?
Like that.
Okay.
That. Run.
Maternity services in England are failing too many families with problems at every stage. That's the interim conclusion of a national review led by Baroness Amos, which has identified 6 factors that impact care, including racism, staffing and culture. The Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, who commissioned the review, has promised to act on its final recommendations, which are due in June. Michael Buchanan has more details.
When an inquiry in 2015 found that 11 babies and 1 mother had died avoidably at Furness General Hospital due to poor maternity care, the NHS promised the mistakes would never happen again. Over a decade later, more than 10,000 babies are estimated to have died in England due to maternity errors.
They actually made me feel like I was going insane and that my concerns weren't valid or real, because every time I raised them, they were met with a quick shutdown. And because of this, I genuinely believe that that's why our son is not here.
Orlando Davis died in 2021 at 14 days old. Maternity staff failed to recognise his mother had become ill in labour, and Orlando was born in a poor condition. An inquest found his death had been contributed to by neglect.
The number of individuals that were involved in this situation, this wasn't 1 or 2, this was multiple midwives, multiple consultants and registrars across a prolonged area of time from in the community to in hospital. This was not a one event caused an outcome.
The family's experience is supported by Baroness Amos, who says problems occur at every stage of the maternity journey. The issues, she says, are caused by culture and leadership of maternity units, with midwives and obstetricians sometimes not cooperating, workforce with units not being fully or properly staffed, racism and discrimination, including against poor women, a lack of accountability when things go wrong, and outdated and dilapidated buildings. This morning, Baroness Amos told me she hoped her review would lead to meaningful change.
This is the first time that there has been an investigation like this, which is looking at the systems informed by the experiences of the families to come up with a set of national recommendations. That's the thing that is different here.
Emily Barley, whose daughter died in 2022 due to maternity errors, doesn't, however, believe the Amos review will improve care.
The report itself and Baroness Amos's analysis and the information she's provided is not new. And there's not going to be anything new in this process. It's not going to get us closer to that really difficult question of how we change culture and how we change everything else.
West Streeting has promised to ensure the final recommendations of the Amos review, due in June, are fully enacted. For those families who have already been failed, their fervent hope is that no one else suffers as they have and that care does improve. Michael Buchanan, BBC News.
The Culture Secretary, Lisa Nandy, has said the BBC was wrong to broadcast a racial slur during the BAFTA ceremony. The word was shouted out by an audience member who has Tourette's while two black actors were presenting an award, and it was not edited out. Our culture correspondent Lisa Mzimba has more.
The Culture Secretary told MPs in the House of Commons that she'd spoken to Tim Davie, the BBC's Director General, immediately following the broadcast, and that while she was pleased that an investigation was ongoing, she was still disappointed with the BBC.
This government and I were not satisfied with the initial response from the BBC, and we do need to see much swifter action taken in these sorts of instances, and action that results in this not happening again. I think we're all deeply concerned that there have been too many incidents of this kind.
She also said it was important to ensure that the BAFTAs and other award ceremonies should be inclusive for people with Tourette's. Now, she referred to an investigation that Tim Davie announced yesterday being carried out by the BBC's Executive Complaints Unit. Now, they will generally rule on whether something has either complied with or broken BBC editorial guidelines. More significant are questions sent to Tim Davie by the Culture, Media, Sport Committee of crossbench MPs. Now, they've asked things like, why was the language not edited out before broadcast? What systems are in place to prevent broadcasting such language? And what's been learnt from previous incidents? Now, the BBC will have to answer those questions and more, and have been given a deadline by the committee of a week on Monday, the 9th of March.
Lisa Mzimba there. Today, Oscar voters around the world begin marking their ballots to decide this year's Oscar winners. Norway is hoping for international recognition with Sentimental Value. It's a family drama movie set in Oslo and the first Norwegian film ever nominated for Best Picture in the Academy's near-century history. Talking Movies presenter Tom Brooks caught up with the director Joachim Trier in Berlin.
I'll just do it with one pen if that's okay. Of course I will. You're a star. Thank you very much. Well, I don't know, man. I'm very happy that people care about films from Norway. It didn't used to be like that.
Meet Joachim Trier, the director of Sentimental Value, surrounded by admiring fans outside a Berlin hotel. His profile has been boosted by the success of his modestly budgeted Norwegian family drama, which has picked up an impressive 9 Oscar nominations and numerous other accolades.
Gorgeous. My father is a very difficult person.
It's the story of a family in Oslo, the relationship between 2 sisters. And at its centre, it details the estrangement between one of the sisters, an actor played by Renate Reinsve, and her film director father, portrayed by Stellan Skarsgård, who's trying to reclaim his former glory.
Jag skrev det till dig. Bara du som kan spela den rollen.
So, yeah, you've been doing a lot of traveling. You were in Los Angeles, and then what happened?
Yeah, and then it's been New York.
I found it easy to chat to Joachim Trier as we walked to the interview location on a cold Berlin morning. He's disarming, unpretentious, and I think an honest storyteller. Sentimental Value is his 6th feature film. He has collaborated with the same screenwriter, Eskil Vogt, on all of them. Until Sentimental Value, he was best known for his 2021 picture, The Worst Person in the World, a critically acclaimed character study of a woman navigating the complexities of her life in Oslo.
I'll just have a double espresso, please. Yeah.
I feel there's an honesty and a rawness in what you capture, which you don't always see.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. No, I guess I am interested in behavior more than I am in telling stories.
Yeah.
I'm interested in trying to get into the head of people.
Yeah.
A director for a moment, and just for this one, not to be completely in the way. What is different with this film, as opposed to the previous ones, I think, is that I made something which deals with very fundamental issues of communication and discommunication in family, between siblings, parents and children. Things that I imagine are more universal almost than anything I've done, because it's about two sisters, grown-up women, who's trying to deal with their father, who has been quite a narcissistic, difficult character, quite avoidant. And they're trying to reconcile. So many people see it as an allegory of dealing with men in power or men that are of that generation that don't know how to have that more intimate type of communication.
Det en ganske stor forskjell på hvordan vi vokste opp da. Ja, du og deg.
What Joachim Trier is perhaps most excited about is how his film, with its 9 Oscar nominations, has travelled to audiences in distant lands to become Norway's most successful film globally in history.
I come from a country of 5.5 million people, and it's not to be taken for granted that a film from Norway travels like this. So we're grateful for
It's a very impressive achievement, isn't it?
At the moment, everyone's really struggling in Norway as well because the arts funding hasn't really increased. We're having that fight too. But anyway, good talking to you, man. But maybe we'll meet on the red carpet later.
Sentimental Value is the first Norwegian film ever nominated for a Best Picture Academy Award. But quite apart from the Oscars, Joachim Trier has already given audiences a piece of well-crafted cinema with a very resonant, tenderly told human story that seems to touch people quite deeply. Tom Brook, BBC News, Berlin.
You're watching The World Today. We're back at the top of the hour. Stay with us.
Hello. An area of low pressure is going to be bringing some windy weather to parts of Manitoba and Ontario in Canada. Gusts picking up to around 50, maybe 60 miles an hour, with some snow as well. So there will be some poor driving conditions here through Friday. Band of rain pushes into the southeast of the United States. That's going to be heavy and thundery. Most of the US, though, will be very mild, with our temperatures even reaching up to about 97 Fahrenheit in the desert southwest. Now, heading into Mexico, it's also very hot across the northwest of the country. Temperatures reaching the mid-30s to low 40s in terms of Celsius, so some very high temperatures for the time of year. Now, we're looking at some heavy rains continuing to affect Minas Gerais in Brazil, along with Sao Paulo State, Rio de Janeiro State and Espírito Santo. These areas could see 50 to 100 millimetres of rain, bringing a threat of flooding and maybe a few landslides as well. Band of rain works into the north and west of Europe. Ahead of that, we've got very mild air. Temperatures in Germany running around 5 to 10 Celsius above average. 17 degrees Celsius in Berlin is pretty crazy for February. Heavy snow continues to affect eastern areas of Turkey. Now we're looking at some heavy rains affecting parts of Tanzania, running into parts of Zambia and on towards southern areas of the Democratic Republic of Congo. Probably some downpours too across Malawi. Much of northeast Africa dry and sunny, but the air is pretty chilly. We've got some cold weather moving in across the Middle East at the moment as well. Cold enough for some snow showers in Lebanon, heavy snow for the mountains of North Iraq, northwest Iran and into eastern areas of Turkey as well. Now we're looking at a few showers across southern areas of India. Otherwise the weather largely dry through Friday, with plenty of afternoon sunshine on the cards. We're looking at largely dry conditions for the Philippines on Friday as the subtropical ridge edges in here. Could be a few showers across the far south. Widespread showers for Vietnam forecast as we go through Friday. And I think over the next few days, showers and thunderstorms become heavier and more widespread across central and eastern areas of Indonesia, bringing a threat of some localised flooding. Heavy downpours pretty widespread in Australia at the moment, but the heaviest rains will be across central areas of Australia. Several hundred millimetres over the next few days is likely to lead to some significant localised flooding.
I'm on a Turkish adventure, combining my love of food with history. And in the country's southeast, the dishes echo the old spice routes and the stories reach back to the dawn of civilization. Join me, Julie Lynn, for World's Ultimate Adventures on BBC News.
The fearsome display of cartel violence this week has shaken Mexicans who are trying to get back to normal. But what does the killing of El Mencho mean for Mexico? Join me, Will Grant, on BBC News.
How is the new Netflix documentary about Lucy Letby being received? And why does this case continue to attract audiences around the world? Some say the true crime boom raises difficult ethical questions, and we'll hear from journalists and researchers covering the story. It's all on the Media Show on BBC News.
It's 7 p.m. in London. This is The World Today with Maryam Moshiri. Hillary Clinton testifies before a congressional committee investigating the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. This is the scene live from New York State. The former US Secretary of State says President Trump should be called to give evidence. Nuclear talks between Iran and the US have ended in Geneva. Technical discussions are planned for next week. Jersey votes to legalise assisted dying for some terminally ill adults. Amid growing concern over online safety, Instagram says it will alert parents if their children search for suicide content. Also coming up on The World Today, following the harsh UK winter, we meet the heroes keeping these cute seals alive. Hello and welcome to The World Today on BBC News. We start in the United States, where former presidential candidate and Secretary of State Hillary Clinton has been testifying to a congressional committee that's investigating the paedophile Jeffrey Epstein. Her husband, former President Bill Clinton, will also be testifying and is due to appear tomorrow. Well, these are the live pictures from the Chappaqua Performing Arts Centre in New York, where the deposition has been taking place. Hillary Clinton says she does not recall ever encountering Mr. Epstein and never flew on his plane or visited his island, home or offices. Hillary Clinton also urges lawmakers to ask President Donald Trump about Epstein under oath. The deposition of Hillary Clinton was paused briefly at one point after Republican Representative Lauren Boebert sent a photo of the closed-door proceedings to a right-wing influencer. Well, the couple were initially reluctant to give evidence, but changed their minds after Republicans threatened to hold them in contempt of Congress. The Clintons are not accused of any wrongdoing. Well, let's have a listen to what Republicans and Democrats have been saying today. First, Republican chair of the US Congressional Oversight Committee, James Comer. He insisted it wasn't a witch hunt against the Clintons.
This isn't just about Democrats. This is about anyone that has any knowledge of Epstein, the investigation. I think we all agree the government failed. The government failed the victims. And what our role is, we can't prosecute anyone. But what we have been doing is getting transparency to the American people. We subpoenaed the estate. That had nothing to do with the discharge petition. We subpoenaed the documents for the estate. That's what the victims asked us to do. And what you're seeing is there is accountability finally happening. You've seen at least a dozen very powerful people, men and women, who have already resigned, many in disgrace from their board positions. So we're seeing accountability, but we have a desire to see a lot more accountability. We want to get the answers, and hopefully the next 2 days will be a step in the right direction on our investigation.
Well, the Democrats' ranking House member of the committee, Robert Garcia, has also called on Mr. Trump to testify, and he said he was looking forward to Hillary Clinton's testimony.
Oversight Democrats, from day one, we have said that we want to talk to anyone, any person with information about Jeffrey Epstein, about his crimes, about how he was able to get so much wealth. We will talk to any single person, whether that is a Democrat, a Republican, how much wealth they have, how powerful their position is. We want to talk to anyone. So we're happy to be here, and we're glad that both Secretary Clinton and former President Clinton are willing to talk to this committee. I also think it's important to note, I'm glad to see that we have our Republican colleagues here. There's a big group of them. I wish they would have joined us at the Les Wexner deposition, but I'm glad that they're here now to get questions answered. That is an important part of our investigation. Let me just add that as it relates to Secretary Clinton, who's here today, she has been very clear. She's never met Jeffrey Epstein. We have no evidence of her having any interactions with Mr. Epstein. And so I think that's important to note as we walk into this deposition.
Well, here's our North America editor, Sarah Smith, for more on what's been going on today at the House Oversight Committee.
Well, the only thing that we know that has happened so far since Hillary Clinton started giving evidence is that the hearing has now been paused because a photograph of her giving her testimony was shared on social media. It appears to have been shared by one of the Republican representatives on the committee, Lauren Boebert. That's very much against the House of Representatives rules, so the hearing has been paused and gone off the record while that is sorted out, although we expect it to pick up again soon. Now, it is all happening behind closed doors at the moment, so we don't know what's being said, but we do expect that a transcript of the whole hearing will be shared several hours after it's finished, once the chance lawyers for both Hillary Clinton and for the committee have had a chance to look through it. And on previous occasions when they've done things like this, video of the hearing has been shared as well several hours after it has finished. It may be not until tomorrow that we'll see video of Hillary Clinton giving evidence, by which time, of course, her husband Bill Clinton will be in front of the committee himself.
And, you know, what more do we know about Hillary Clinton's stance? I mean, she has said, hasn't she, very emphatically that she has no information about any of Jeffrey Epstein's crimes. In fact, she says she never even met Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah, that's right. And she gave an opening statement which was shared with the media, 4 pages of it before she began giving evidence today, in which, as you say, says she has no recollection of ever meeting Jeffrey Epstein, that she has no relevant information about any of his crimes or investigations into them, and says that she believes that if the committee is really serious about getting to the bottom of what happened, it should be asking President Trump questions about his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, given that he is mentioned very frequently in the Epstein files, and that there are other people the committee ought to be taking evidence from rather than her and her husband. Bill Clinton himself as well says that he has no knowledge of any of Jeffrey Epstein's criminal activities and that he deeply regrets his personal association with him.
Well, let's speak now to Norman Ornstein, a political scientist who's an emeritus scholar at the American Enterprise Institute. Thanks so much for joining us, Norman. Let me ask you first of all, some people have called this theatre, political theatre, rather than political oversight. What's your view?
It is political theater. If there were genuine oversight here, to begin with, this would have been done in public. It would have been a public hearing, which is what both Hillary and Bill Clinton asked to have happen. Doing it behind closed doors, where they have a little more control over what gets released and when, is not normal for elements like this. And of course, the fact is that Hillary Clinton, as she says in her statement, is not connected to Epstein or the Epstein crimes. If this were, in fact, as Chairman Comer has said, a thorough investigation, put Donald Trump, the sitting president, aside for a moment at least, his Commerce Secretary, Howard Lutnick, lied when he said he had no dealings with Epstein after 2004. He bought the house next door to Epstein from him for $10, was in business with him, and traveled to the island with his family. They have shown no interest in interviewing Howard Lutnick or others in the orbit of Donald Trump. They're looking simply at Democrats, which tells you that this is not the kind of oversight we would expect from Congress.
And of course, it's important to underline the fact that Howard Lutnick is not guilty of any crime, and being in the Epstein file isn't proof of guilt of a crime either. But one thing that we do know is that some people are saying, you know, politically, it's a good moment now to bring the Clintons in, given that we have those midterms coming up, and in the past, animosity towards the Clintons has been used as political pawn.
There's no question that when Republicans are looking at those who their base doesn't like or views with disdain, the Clintons are at the top of the list. It's certainly legitimate to ask Bill Clinton questions about his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. There was a relationship where Epstein gave money to the Clinton Foundation. We have no evidence that Bill Clinton ever went to the island or had anything to do with the illegal activities. But I'll circle back again. There are people from both parties who were involved with Jeffrey Epstein. We're not assigning guilt at the moment for crimes, but if you're serious about oversight, all of those mentioned in relation to Jeffrey Epstein, especially those who went to the island, would be interviewed. And of course, the fact that the Justice Department somehow kept from the public information about a credible accusation against Donald Trump by a then 13-year-old girl tells you that we're not really serious. Republicans in Congress, much less in the Trump administration, they're not serious about really getting to the bottom of what went on here. They want to distract from the potentially difficult realities.
Okay, Norman, good to speak to you. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Well, let's stick for a moment with the fallout from the Epstein files. The European Commission has referred Peter Mandelson to fraud investigators over his links to the convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. The Commission is assessing now whether Mr. Mandelson, Lord Mandelson, who served as European Commissioner for Trade from 2004 to 2008, broke the bloc's rules after recently released files suggested he gave Epstein key information about a $500 billion bailout to save the euro in 2010. Mandelson was arrested on suspicion of misconduct in public office on Monday before being released on bail. He maintains that he has not acted in any way criminally and was not motivated by financial gain. The child killer, Ian Huntley, is in a serious condition in hospital after being attacked in prison. It happened at the high-security Franklin jail in County Durham. Huntley is serving a life sentence for the murders of 10-year-old girls Holly Wells and Jessica Chapman in the town of Soham in Cambridgeshire in 2002. Well, let's speak to our correspondent, Danny Savage, who is at Franklin Prison for us. And Danny, what more do we know about what happened to Ian Huntley and his condition right now?
Well, Ian Huntley is one of the most despised prisoners here in the UK. He is a child killer who pretended to have no idea why two young children had disappeared in his small town in Cambridgeshire in Soham back in 2002. The truth of the matter is that he had enticed 10-year-olds Holly Wells and Jessica Chapman into his home at the time, murdered them and then dumped their bodies in a ditch 17 miles away for them to be found several days later. Now, he was given a 40-year minimum sentence here in the UK to serve after that trial for those murders. And since he's been in prison, he has been attacked on a number of occasions. In 2005, he had boiling water thrown at him at Wakefield Prison in Yorkshire. In 2010, he was attacked here at Franklin Prison, which is one of the maximum security prisons here in the UK. He was attacked by another inmate at the time who slashed his throat. He received very serious injuries and needed many stitches. And then we've had another attack here this morning on Ian Huntley. It appears by another inmate who's hit him over the head with what we understand is a metal bar, and he was taken to hospital shortly after 9 o'clock this morning with very serious head injuries. We've had a statement from the police here in Durham this evening. They say a 52-year-old prisoner injured during this morning's assault remains in a serious condition in hospital with head injuries. Police forensic teams have examined the scene here. A suspect, a prisoner in his mid-40s, has been identified. He has not been arrested but remains in detention within the prison. So Ian Huntley attacked for a third time whilst he's been in custody. Sounds very serious this time with serious head injuries. He remains in hospital. An investigation remains ongoing here at this high security prison in Northern England here this evening.
Danny, thank you very much. Jersey has voted to legalise assisted dying for terminally ill people. It's the second UK Crown dependency to do so after the Isle of Man. Well, the proposed legislation would make assisted dying available to adults who are expected to die within at least 6 months or 12 months for neurodegenerative conditions like, for example, motor neuron disease. They must have mental capacity and be acting free from coercion, and have been living in Jersey for at least 12 months. 2 doctors are needed to assess eligibility. This all comes as the separate assisted dying bill for England and Wales continues to face roadblocks with slow progress through the House of Lords. From the Jersey capital, St Helier, Fergus Walsh sent this report.
And I can announce that the assisted dying law has been adopted in third reading.
A piece of history in Jersey's Parliament.
Amazing.
A rare victory for assisted dying campaigners.
I'm really pleased, mostly relieved more than anything else. It's relief. I kind of feel a weight's off my shoulders now. And for me personally, at my end, I'm going to be able to live right up until the end because that time's not going to be taken up with worry about how I'm going to die.
Jersey's health minister was the driving force behind this legislation.
I came to this after the death of my father, which was a pretty miserable business from cancer. And it struck me that I know that he wouldn't have wanted to die in the way he did. And had this been available, I'm sure that he'd have opted for it.
But some Jersey politicians are dismayed.
I have opposed this from day one, but it's based on my nursing, my belief systems, my knowledge and absolute respect for hospice care, palliative care, proper end-of-life care. And I can't move away from that.
Jersey's Parliament has gone further on assisted dying than any other part of the British Isles. Doctors here will be allowed to administer a lethal drug infusion, as happens in Spain, Australia and New Zealand. Under the proposals at Westminster and Holyrood, individuals would need to self-administer, which usually means drink, the lethal dose. Some Jersey politicians would like the law extended to those who are not terminally ill but are suffering unbearably. Mark Wilburn fears this. A GP with multiple sclerosis, he says the slippery slope is inevitable.
I think the safeguards will be eroded and it'll leave us with euthanasia by the back door. And instead of having an inclination towards treating you and curing you when you're incapacitated, they will want to end your life instead.
Jersey's assisted dying bill will now go for royal assent, and only when that's granted will it become law on the island. Another Crown dependency, the Isle of Man, is still waiting for royal assent 11 months after passing similar legislation, after a series of queries from the Ministry of Justice in London.
Well, that report from our medical editor, Fergus Walsh. Let's take a short break now. Around the world and across the UK, this is The World Today on BBC News. In the past hour, talks between the US and Iran in Geneva have ended. Oman, which is acting as mediator, says there was significant progress and Iran and the US will hold technical discussions next week in Vienna. Let's speak now to our chief international correspondent, Lise Doucette, who is in Geneva. And Lise, what do we understand about how these talks went?
Well, Maryam, we only have this very short statement on the social media platform X by Badr al-Busaidi, who is the Omani foreign minister, the main mediator in this process, and he spoke of significant progress having been achieved today, so much so that the teams will meet again next week, which, for what you mentioned, will be more technical discussions in the Austrian capital, Vienna. We haven't heard yet from the Iranian side or from the American side. In the middle of the day today, after more than 3 hours of talks, there had been a statement by Iran's foreign ministry spokesperson who said that there had been constructive and practical proposals which had been put forward by both sides on the nuclear file as well as on the lifting of sanctions. And Ismail Baghai said that they described the talks as very serious, more serious than last time, and said they were very confident. So no doubt in the hours to come, we will hear more from both sides exactly what was achieved. It'll have to be significant because, as we've been reporting, the clock is counting down. President Trump has made it clear he wants a deal quickly. It sounds like there's still a lot of technical discussions, and it has to be that. The nuclear file is very, very technical, and a lot of issues, details, will have to be sorted out, even if they did make progress on closing the gaps today.
And of course, as you've mentioned, there is a deep desire to get a deal done, not least because there is evidence, of course, of mounting military presence of the United States in the Middle East, and also the Iranians themselves ramping up their military presence in the area.
Yes, every day, or hardly a day goes by without more news of more reinforcements of the U.S. buildup in the Middle East, being described as the biggest since the U.S.-led invasion of Iraq in 2003. Iran, as well, has been signaling that it is also for strengthening its defensive, also strengthening its offensive capability, warning that when there are statements from the United States quoting American officials, even President Trump saying that he's considering a very short, sharp, limited strike, Iran making it clear there is no such thing as a limited strike this time, that if they are hit, that this time they won't hold back, they won't telegraph the strike, they won't take caution to avoid U.S. military casualties as they've done in previous confrontations. So there is that in the background. Both sides, though, are saying they prefer to do a deal, and this is what is unfolding now.
And Lise, as these negotiations continue, the technical ones are going to take place in Vienna, we believe, under a backdrop of those protests that we saw brutally cracked down upon by the Iranian government. And we've seen, some protests across various universities in Iran as well. Just talk to us about what any potential deal means for those protesters and those protests inside Iran that we've seen since the end of December.
Yes, very courageous students who took to the university. Was the first sign of unrest since the last wave of protests, which ended in January, was put down with lethal force. The toll in that is still being counted, but it's believed to have been in the many thousands. And all week there have been large gathering of students at some of the elite universities in Tehran as well as in Mashhad, the second largest city in the northeast. A number of slogans were chanted by the students, some like Azadi, Azadi, freedom, freedom, also unfurling the flag of the monarchy, the Lion and the Sun, even chanting women, life and freedom, which was the rallying cry of the last wave of protests in 2022 and 23. There were some demonstrations by pro-government supporters. They were chanting death to America, death to Israel. There were some scuffles, and since these protests began, there's been a warning from the Iran government spokesperson saying that there were limits and red lines as to how far the government would permit these protests to develop. How could military strikes help? I was really struck when we were in Iran last week that for the first time ever I heard heard Iranians said to us that nobody wants their country to be attacked, but that they didn't see any other way for them to try to bring about fundamental change in the political structure in Iran unless there were U.S. military strikes. But other people, of course, express real anguish at a time when they're suffering from multiple crises, the possibility of another war on Iranian territory, which will add yet more pressure to their lives. It could be really unpredictable, Maryam. We just don't know. Once you unleash military action, it's so hard to predict how it will play out on the ground.
Lise, thank you very much indeed. Lise Doucette, Chief International Correspondent in Geneva for us. Footage has emerged from the occupied West Bank showing members of the Israeli military shooting a 14-year-old Palestinian boy and then standing around for at least 45 minutes while he bled to death. The Israeli military has accused the boy of throwing a rock. His parents say footage of the incident last November shows soldiers planting something next to him after he was shot. The BBC's Joel Gunter sent this report from the West Bank and a warning you may find some of these images distressing.
The boy lying on the ground is 14-year-old Jad Jadallah. He has been shot by Israeli soldiers. He will lie here for at least 45 minutes, surrounded by the soldiers, as he bleeds to death. Jad was born and raised in Al Farah refugee camp in the occupied West Bank. His father, Jihad, took us to the place where he was shot. He's showing us the bullet holes where Jad was shot, and CCTV video shows Jad and his friends in this spot when Israeli soldiers appeared just a few meters away on this corner. First, you see Jad's friend run up the alley. Then you see a soldier who appears to raise his rifle and shoot from close range. Jad appears to be hit before running a few meters and collapsing. The Israeli military has accused Jad of throwing a rock, which can, under their rules of engagement, permit them to respond with lethal force. But this sequence shows an Israeli soldier dropping something next to Jad after he was shot. The object seems to be heavy. The soldier steps back before stepping forward again and appearing to take a picture. Jad's mother, Safa, says this footage shows the soldier planting a rock to frame her son.
They dropped a stone by his hand so they could frame him and make it look like he was throwing stones at them. Anyone who watches the video will see it.
The Israeli military told the BBC they gave Jad initial medical treatment, but they refused to give any more detail. In the video, the soldiers appear to ignore repeated attempts by Jad to get their attention. Local paramedics arrived on the scene within minutes, but were blocked at gunpoint by Israeli soldiers. One of them told us they could have saved Jad's life.
We tried to advance several times, tried signaling them to let us reach the child, but we were completely blocked.
According to the UN, Israeli forces have killed 227 Palestinian children in the West Bank since the October 7th attacks. In some cases, including Jad's, they have refused to return the body. The families say it is deliberate cruelty.
I want my son. I want to bury him. They have the right to bury their children. I want the right to bury my son. They already killed him, but they won't give him back to us, and we don't know why.
We asked the Israeli military why they haven't returned Jad's body, but they declined to answer. Joel Gunter, BBC News in the occupied West Bank.
Let's go back now to our top story and Hillary Clinton's testimony over Jeffrey Epstein. We are now hearing from the Democrats' ranking House member of the committee, Robert Garcia, talking about that deposition. Let's have a listen.
Serious accusations around sexual abuse. And the fact that they're not in the files and have been apparently either removed or discarded is incredibly concerning. And so we're calling on Attorney General Pam Bondi to immediately release those files. And lastly, I want to also add that this committee has now set a new precedent about talking to presidents and former presidents. And we're demanding immediately that we ask President Trump to testify in front of our committee and be deposed in front of oversight Republicans and Democrats. And that should happen immediately. He is the person that appears almost more than anyone else in the committee, and it needs to happen right now.
Mr. Chairman, do you distinguish at all between a president and a former president and a sitting president? I mean, is there something in there? Because they will say, wait a minute, we know what the court ruled on his immunity.
We should depose the person that is mentioned in the Epstein files almost more than any other person next to Ghislaine Maxwell, and that's Donald Trump. We're gonna have a couple comments, and then we're gonna go ahead. I'm gonna answer a couple questions.
Thank you. Thank you. House Republicans need to get serious about this investigation. I understand now fully why Secretary Clinton wanted to make this deposition and her hearing public, because the reality is we are talking to the wrong person today. Who we should be talking to instead are people who are actually mentioned in the files, people who have made misleading statements about their relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. Earlier today, Chairman Comer mentioned being open to talking to Secretary Lutnick. Well, let's get him in. Let's talk to Secretary Lutnick instead. Let's talk to someone who is neighbors with Jeffrey Epstein, who actually associated with Jeffrey Epstein, not someone who had never ever met Jeffrey Epstein to their knowledge. And so let's try to talk about people who will help us with our investigation, and let's release the 2.5 million files so we can know who else to talk to, and so we can do right by the victims and actually bring justice. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Congresswoman Yasmin Ansari, representing Arizona's 3rd District. I am extremely appalled by the Republican chairman's behavior today and by the behavior of the entire committee and how unserious they are about this investigation. Let's remind the country about what we are actually talking about. Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, and a list of many rich and powerful people from around the United States and around the world abused and raped more than 1,000 people who were children, many of whom were children at the time. And today we are sitting through an incredibly unserious clown show of a deposition where members of Congress and the Republican Party are more concerned about getting their photo op of Secretary Clinton than actually getting to the truth and holding anyone accountable. I also want to talk about the reporting from this week and the fact that we now know that the Department of Justice, in their ongoing cover-up, the most egregious cover-up in American history, intentionally seem to have redacted more or withheld more than 50 pages of allegations from a minor against President Trump. Do not forget that Kash Patel went in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee and said under oath that the FBI had no credible allegations of any other people being involved in this child sex trafficking operation. These documents that the Department of Justice intentionally has withheld from the American public in regard to the allegations against President Trump came from the FBI. The FBI had interviewed this witness 4 times. You do not do that if it is not serious. So Kash Patel needs to be immediately brought back before the Oversight Committee. He needs to answer these questions again, and we need answers immediately. Again, America is watching. Young people in this country are watching to see if powerful people will continue to protect other powerful people and whether or not Congress will actually hold these perpetrators accountable. Thank you.
Wesley Bell, Missouri's 1st Congressional District, and as a former prosecutor, I've been involved in leading investigations in serious offenses, and this ain't it. What we're seeing is political theater. What we're seeing is folks that are looking for headlines and tweets as opposed to doing the business of going about getting justice for the victims in this case, and survivors in this case, I should say, as well. And I think that that's what I think some of our friends on the other side are losing sight of, is that we are here to make certain that justice is served. And it's important for us, and as oversight members, to do our job to ensure that all the evidence, any information is heard, and that any victims, any survivors voices are heard as well, and that's what we're supposed to be doing. And so what we're seeing today is we have not learned one new thing. The secretary is here. She is more than happy to have all of you come in there and into this deposition and hear her out. But there are those on the other side of the aisle who do not want that for whatever reason. And so we're going to continue to push for justice. We're going to continue to work to make certain that the victims and survivors are given their due and their voices are heard and that justice is ultimately served.
Thank you. I'm James Walkinshaw from Virginia's 11th District. The Trump administration's treatment of the survivors of Jeffrey Epstein's crimes has been a callous disregard. We've seen that in his refusal to release the files. We saw that this week at the State of the Union with his refusal to acknowledge the survivors who were in the chamber. One of the things that's been confirmed today is that in addition to having no relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, Secretary Clinton has no relationship with Ghislaine Maxwell. But there are important questions we should be asking the Trump administration about Ghislaine Maxwell. And I hope that our Republican colleagues will join us in asking these questions. Why is it that Donald Trump has refused to rule out the pardon, the clemency that Ghislaine Maxwell is campaigning for? We held a deposition in this committee with Ghislaine Maxwell. She used that deposition as an opportunity to campaign for a pardon. Chairman Comer then walked out before many of you and gave her talking points as to why she should get a pardon. Donald Trump needs to direct Attorney General Bondi to release all the files, to unredact the illegal redactions, and he needs to unequivocally rule out a pardon for Ghislaine Maxwell, who is a monster, convicted of child sex trafficking. Why has he not ruled out pardoning her? Why did the Deputy Attorney General spend hours with her? And then why was she transferred to a cushy, lower security prison? Those are important questions we should be asking about Ghislaine Maxwell. We no longer have to ask whether there's any relationship between Secretary Clinton and Ghislaine Maxwell. There was not.
I'm going to answer a couple of questions. I'm going to answer a question. One second. I'm going to do one statement, then one question. Last thing I'm going to say, and I'm going to begin with a question, is we want to make a very clear demand right now, which is that the full transcript, unedited, of the Secretary's questions and the answers need to be released by the majority in the next 24 hours. We need the public and the American people have a right to know exactly what she said, what questions were asked of her, and how she responded. That's transparency. She herself requested that the press and the public be allowed into the deposition. That was denied. And so at a very minimum, they need to immediately release the full transcript, and we're hopeful that tomorrow, for the former president, that the press would be allowed in and the public as well. That's been the request.
Thank you, Mr. Ranking Member. How did that leaked photo get out, and do you believe there should be any repercussions?
Well, the repercussions should come from the majority and from Chairman Comer. I mean, it was very clear that leaked photo was sent out by a member. I think it's not hard to figure out what member that was by looking at the photo. And the fact it was not just one photo, it was one photo and then a second post that also included a photo as well. And so that was completely against the rules. I think we're grateful that the Secretary continued the deposition, but not acceptable.
The Secretary's been clear that she has no relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. She's never met Jeffrey Epstein. She said a few times that she has had encounters with Ghislaine Maxwell. She clarified what those meetings were like. Did she talk about Ghislaine Maxwell attending her daughter's wedding? Did you get any new insight into those interactions?
I think, obviously, we can't get into specifics about the answers, but we will get all those as soon as the video is released. And so we have to be very careful about giving specifics about what was actually said in the deposition per committee rules, which is why we're demanding right now that James Comer and the Republicans release the full transcript where all of the questions that were asked will be fully answered by Secretary Clinton. What I can say is that she, again, never met Jeffrey Epstein, never went to the island, never went to the plane, and had no knowledge of any of his crimes. This is completely unacceptable.
When it comes to Howard Lutnick, when Comer went in, he said it's a possibility. When I asked him if Lutnick would be subpoenaed, Mason said she had an email printed out that she wanted to ask Clinton about. What was that line of questioning like in the room, and was there any discussion about moving forward on a request or a subpoena for Lutnick?
We've made the request of Howard Lutnick. It is unacceptable that we have the Commerce Secretary who has lied and lied and lied about his relationships with Jeffrey Epstein, the fact that he went to the island, he went on the plane, he went into business with Jeffrey Epstein, and yet sat there in a chair with a reporter and lied to the American people. He should resign today. He should be removed from office, and at minimum should come before the committee. I think everyone's been clear that we need to hear from Howard Lutnick.
Can you give us a sense in the room, the questioning in the room?
I'm not. I want all of the secretary's responses to be released immediately, or I want the press to be allowed in to get details on that.
Can you give us a sense of what it was like in the room? Is this a very tense deposition? And also, can you give a little bit more color of what exactly happened when this moment on social media is shared? Was there back and forth about letting the press inside the room?
So what I can say is obviously everybody was very taken aback by the committee rules being essentially not enforced and certainly just broken immediately. That is not acceptable, especially when the secretary said from day one that she wanted the press in the room. When the incident happened, I think this is something that can be reported. The secretary's team continued to demand, even after the incident, to let the press into the room, because what was important for her is that her answers to the questions not be edited, that the video not be edited. And so we understand that, and we're committed to getting this video transcript out immediately.
To be clear, she is answering every question.
To be clear, she's answering all the questions.
Taking the fifth at all?
To be clear, she's answering all the questions. I think I can safely say that she's not taking the fifth.
Mr. Garcia.
Last question.
In terms of her understanding of her husband's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, is that something that she's been asked about?
I want the full transcripts to be released immediately, and I think everything that she said in her testimony will be cleared. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
So that's the ranking Democrat, Robert Garcia, and a number of other Democrats giving a mid-deposition update to the waiting media, talking about the fact that Hillary Clinton, in her deposition so far, has said that she has never met Jeffrey Epstein and never been to the late sex offender's private island and never went on his plane. He also talked actually in detail about President Trump. He said at one point that there's one person mentioned the most in Epstein files, almost as much as Ghislaine Maxwell, and that's President Donald Trump, and that he should also be asked to appear in front of the Oversight Committee to give a deposition. He also then mentioned that photograph taken of Hillary Clinton and posted by Lauren Boebert. She sent a photo of Hillary Clinton from inside the deposition room, and that caused a pause in the deposition earlier on, and he was obviously not particularly happy about that. So those are all of the biggest lines from these this last 15 or so minutes. As I mentioned earlier, Mr. Garcia criticising the Justice Department and calling for the release of the missing Epstein files that mention President Donald Trump. And he also says this committee has set a new precedent of talking to presidents and former presidents as well. We're trying to get to speak to our correspondent from outside the New York State Chappaqua Performing Arts Centre. I think we are going to be able to potentially speak to Neda Tawfik in the next few minutes. Okay, Neda, I think you can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you, Maryam.
Neda, just talk me through what has happened so far.
Yeah, well, Maryam, we heard there from the top Democrat on the House Oversight Committee, Robert Garcia, as well as other Democrats. And they came out essentially saying that Republicans are deeply unserious, slamming this as political theater, a clown show. And defending the former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, of course, a Democrat herself, saying that she is answering every question, that it is clear to them that she never met Jeffrey Epstein, that she never traveled on his plane, visited his island, and had very limited dealings with his co-conspirator, Ghislaine Maxwell. What they did try to kind of shift attention toward is President Trump. They say that they are now going to demand, now that they say the committee has set a new precedent for how presidents can be deposed, because Remember, former President Bill Clinton is going to be deposed tomorrow, and he is going to be the first former president to be forced to testify under oath in front of a congressional committee like this. And so, therefore, they believe they have standing to request President Trump to come under oath to answer their questions. So they are using this moment to pile on the pressure. They are also using this as a moment to again claim that the Department of Justice is shielding President Trump. While President Trump has denied all wrongdoing, they say the Department of Justice has withheld 50 pages of FBI interviews from a minor who made allegations against President Trump, sexual abuse allegations. And so they believe that that needs to be released immediately. So we just heard there, Maryam, from the Democrats on the Oversight Committee trying to get their piece out there, have their say. But clearly it is quite tense in that deposition room.
Neda, thank you very much indeed. Well, let's take a short break now. Around the world and across the UK, this is The World Today on BBC News.
See the latest headlines as they happen with breaking news alerts in the BBC app. And stay informed with live updates on bbc.com. Follow the story with BBC News.
In the world of business, everything is connected. From global hubs to places less traveled. The big stories to your bottom line. The path can be unpredictable. But with the right insights, you can see where the bend in the road will lead. Business on BBC News. Make the connection.
Tech giants have come under increasing pressure over recent months to do more to protect children using social media. Well, now one of them, Meta, says it's taking an important step in doing that. Parents will be alerted if their child searches for terms relating to suicide or self-harm on Instagram. Meta is currently in the midst of a landmark court case, facing accusations from grieving parents that its platforms cause addiction. Well, child safety campaigners have described the new tool as flimsy and have also warned it could do more harm than good. With more, here's Tom Simons.
If it can happen to our family, then it could happen to anybody.
This weekend, 30 cinemas will show Molly versus the Machines, a documentary about Molly Russell, 14, when she took her own life after looking at suicide content on social media platforms. Instagram was one of them, and around 40% of teenagers have an account. Now Instagram's becoming the first social media platform to introduce suicide alerts. The system starts in the UK in 2 weeks' time. The notifications will be sent on Instagram, but also via email and messaging apps. Parents will be told that it looks like their child searched for content related to suicide or self-harm repeatedly over a short period of time. They can then click through to a page offering advice about what to do next.
But Instagram will only know who a child's parents are if they've added them via their teen accounts. Those were introduced in 2024. And one concern about this is that children over 15 can opt out of teen accounts without telling their parents.
But Molly Russell's father, Ian, now an online safety campaigner, thinks this whole approach is wrong.
Instead of taking responsibility for the harms that they provide to young people, Meta are passing the buck and putting it on the shoulders of parents yet again. They could sort this. Bigger picture, they could stop their algorithms suggesting harmful content to keep young people online. That would be safe. That would keep parents happy. That's what they need to do.
Instagram says it blocks content encouraging suicide or self-harm. Its critics say not well enough. And there was a range of responses at this sixth form college in London.
I think it's a really good idea because
protecting the children should be the #1 priority of all companies.
But also at the same time, it could also be really invasive for the child who might not want their parents to know about this, or their parents might be causing them to access this material or to, have certain ideations of like suicide or self-harm.
But politicians are talking about a ban on children using social media, so the platforms are under pressure. Tom Simons, BBC News.
So that's what's been happening in terms of Meta and Instagram. Also today, the online forum Mumsnet is calling for a ban on social media for under 16s, and it's featuring health warnings. You can see one on the screen now, very much in the style of the health warnings you find on cigarette packets. They've launched a new advertising campaign to highlight the dangers of phone addiction amongst young people. Well, Justine Roberts is the founder of Mumsnet. I spoke to her and she said that the aim of this campaign is to really show that social media is as dangerous and, in many cases, as addictive as smoking can be.
Well, we know that 92% of parents on Mumsnet are concerned about the effect of social media on their children's mental health and well-being. So this is something our users want. 83% are in favour of a ban. The government are about to launch a consultation on this, so there's a slight concern they're just kicking the issue slightly into the long grass. We want the government to know how much support there is out there for a ban, how much families are struggling in their day-to-day lives with compulsive use of phones, lost sleep, rising anxiety and collapsing self-esteem of kids. So we want people to write to their MP really and let them know. So hence the kind of high impact campaign that really shows people that this product that is put into our kids' hands is really as dangerous as smoking is.
That was the founder of Mumsnet, Justine Roberts there. A sinkhole suddenly opened at a busy intersection in Omaha, Nebraska in the US, partially swallowing 2 cars. Have a look at this. CCTV footage released by the Omaha Police Department captured the shocking moment the cars plunged into the collapsing ground within seconds. Authorities have closed the road as a precaution in case the sinkhole expands. Fortunately, no one was injured as bystanders and nearby drivers quickly gathered at the scene, appearing to offer assistance to those affected.